The Senate passed a congressional redistricting plan during a special session.
The state got an extra seat in the U.S. House of Representatives after the population of Oregon increased in the last census. Joining us live now to break down what it all means is Associate Professor of Political Science at Lewis and Clark College, Ben Gaskins. Good morning, Ben. Good to see you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So first, let's just kind of explain what is redistricting, this process that we're going through.
Well, the United States House of Representatives has 435 seats, and that hasn't changed or grown in over a century. And so every 10 years when we have this national census, those 435 seats have to be reallocated around the country as living patterns shift and change. And that determines, who represents you in Congress. And now Oregon has that sixth seat, which denotes the fact that we are a growing state. But that gives a lot of opportunities, especially for the Democratic Party, who are looking at the map nationwide and seeing that Republicans could potentially retake the House of Representatives just through redistricting alone. And so Oregon is one of those rare states that gives Democrats an opportunity to add a seat, again, before we even get into the voting next year in the midterm elections.
You pointed out the partisan nature of this process, which isn't really supposed to be partisan. How big a battle is this in the Oregon legislature? I mean, we're just talking about one seat here, but you're talking Democrats and Republicans. How big a deal is this?
Well, it's absolutely huge given how polarized we are nationwide and the fact that the House of Representatives right now is pretty close to split 50-50. Democrats only have 4 seats in a majority in the House that could easily switch back to Republican control, again, just based on how these lines are drawn nationwide. And so that's one big issue here. And the other one that sometimes gets less attention is that the state legislative lines are also being discussed and will be redrawn as well. And whether or not Democrats are able to have districts that allow them to continue to have a supermajority in the Oregon legislature will have a huge impact on the kinds of policies that are able to get passed through the legislature after next year as well. So national politics are at play, and that the National Democratic Party is really putting a lot of pressure on Oregon Democrats to try to draw the districts in a way that benefits the National Party. And also the state is trying to figure out how best to draw those state lines for the Oregon legislature, and so that Democrats can maintain their stranglehold and their control on the legislative process.
Yeah, it's interesting. There are several different motivations in redistricting here. You want to set up a district in a way that gives people a voice, that will actually be heard in their local elections, but then also setting them up in a way that could be advantageous to one party or another. So there's 2 maps being looked at right now. What are the differences in the divides in both these maps?
Well, the big difference is that the Democrats' map is really trying to divide the liberal Portland area into as many districts as possible to make them more likely to go in the Democratic fashion. And by doing that and adding the 6th district towards the south and southwest towards Salem, it gives Democrats a pretty healthy lead in 5 of those 6 districts. And what the Republican map is trying to do is to keep that one solid Republican district, create 2 extremely solid Democratic districts, but then have 2 to 3 more swing districts that give Republicans a much better shot at picking up a seat than they have under the current 5-seat map. And so it really is where those extra districts are drawn and how competitive the Republican Party will be in those districts. And the Republican map, obviously for clear reasons, gives the Republicans a much better shot at adding to their national delegation than they have currently.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of political intrigue here. Just the word redistricting doesn't sound too exciting, but when you explain what's at stake here, it is. So when does a final map need to be made? And what's the process for making it final?
Well, the Oregon Supreme Court has set a deadline of September 27th, which is now less than a week away. So the special session of the legislature was called into session yesterday. And so that gives them a whole week to hammer out these details. Now, obviously, these maps have been discussed and drawn for months now. And so now it comes down to, can the Oregon legislature actually come to an agreement? Will Republicans in the House walk out because they feel that their agreement with the Democratic majority has been gone back on to give them an equal say in this process. And so we have a very fraught few days as the Oregon House takes up these two proposals. And I'll be watching to see whether or not the Oregon Democrats can pass these proposals and whether or not Republicans will give them the quorum that they need in order to do that. And if not, then it goes to a panel of 5 Oregon judges for the national seat and to Secretary of State Fagan for the Oregon legislative seats. So there's a backup if the legislature can't come to an agreement, but they'll see what they can do in the next week to actually pass a plan.
Yeah, something tells me a calm compromise might not be too easy or quickly coming here. So we will certainly be following it along with you. Ben Gaskins from Lewis and Clark College, thanks for joining us to explain it all this morning.
My pleasure, thanks.
And we do have both of those maps and more information from the special session on coin.com if you want to check it out right now.